It is Monday night. What is going on out there? Hey, Carrie. This is Frank. We might have a little bit to talk about tonight. I feel like there's might be a topic or two worthy of discussing tonight. We've got playoffs on the horizon. We got the transfer portal open. And in case anybody forgot, we've got the number one basketball team in the land as well. Let's rock and roll on this thing. How's it going tonight, man?
Pretty good. Semester's about wrapped up, so can't complain.
Semester's wrapped up, and did I see that you have tickets secured for
Yes,
Columbus?
Sir. Yes, sir. I will be making the trip up north, so
All
really
right.
excited about that. Booked my hotel today.
Nice. That's numerous people. Another buddy of mine, he said his streak was in jeopardy of attending a UT game for years that he's been going, and he broke down and got tickets last night as well. So, man, I'm thinking there's going to be a good bit of orange.
I think there will. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, by no means do I expect them to outnumber Ohio State fans, but I think it'll be more than Ohio State fans are used to seeing.
Yeah,
as well. I'm excited about the game. I was kind of hoping for a noon game just because Tennessee plays better during those times. That's not an opinion. I think it's pretty much a fact at this point. But, if you're Tennessee, you've got a chance to go up and really make a difference with this.
Really
and, people are saying, well, Tennessee should have hosted and blah, blah, blah. But it's going to be no easy feat. I mean, some of the stuff I've heard already, and we're going to get into this. Talking about Ohio State's defense, well, Tennessee can do this and that. I'm not seeing it when I'm looking at Ohio State stats and things I'm looking at here. So I don't know where it's coming from. We're going to look at a little bit more individual. We'll hit them more. What's going on, Sanders? How y'all doing, Frank and Carrie? We're rocking and rolling tonight. John Baxter says, I couldn't be more confident. We're a very bad matchup for Ohio State. We're built like Michigan, but way more speed, talent, and depth. Pretty interesting observation right there. So I'm assuming you've probably been on this one for a little bit, looking at it. What's your initial thoughts on this game going into it? How are you feeling? And of course, obviously, overtime with a little less than 2 weeks left. You you can change your opinion here on it, but how are you feeling on this
game? If they would have beat Michigan like everybody expected them to, I would feel a lot different going into this game. I honestly can't say that I would have purchased tickets to go up there because, actually, I mean, if they would have actually beat Michigan, I don't know. They may have jumped Penn State if it all came down to it. But for the sake of the matter of
the Big Ten championship, so
yeah, that's true. They would have played in the Big Ten championship, so we'd probably been up at Penn State. But going into it before they lost to Michigan, I think it was they were definitely a lot scarier then, and then Michigan, in my opinion, exposed them. I don't know how they let them hang around in the second half. I mean, that seemed like a game that Michigan could have run away with. That also seemed like a game that Ohio State could have ran with in the second half. Neither offense did absolutely anything. Michigan basically won the game with a quarterback that's basically a wide receiver. So kind of like old Lynn Bowden used to do for Kentucky a few years ago. So it was just, my opinions totally changed watching Ohio State. And that's kind of a train wreck. I don't know how many people have saw Ryan Day say that the hardest thing that he's had to do was lose to Michigan. Like his family and everybody faces backlash because they lose to Michigan, and that's like the most painful thing that he has to deal with. And right now he's on the hot seat. They want him out, which is crazy if you really look at it, considering like he can beat almost everybody else except Michigan. So at what point do you have to make a sacrifice? But I do realize that is a religion for those people. So definitely it's a prove-it game for them, for Ryan Day, and for that team. I think if Tennessee goes up there and they beat them by 10 plus, I can confidently say he'll still be the head coach the next day.
That's what I was going to ask. You think Tennessee beats them, that could put the nail in the coffin of
I
Ryan?
think it's up for conversation. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things. The firing would have to be done on the Sunday. I don't think that's something that they're going to wait to do. I think the decision would already be made going in. If Tennessee beats us by like 10, then he's out the door.
It's definitely an interesting topic for sure because I've thought about it too. I've heard some suggestions on it. I mean, I really think you got to be careful what you wish for. If you, there'll be a lot of teams out there that will probably be pretty happy to take Ryan Day any day of the week on it. I mean, because he, Urban built that, old honest Urban. Ohio State fans told me about the SEC always cheating, but they didn't. Urban Meyer would never do something shady or anything like that. So, an honorable, a saint, all that stuff. But I mean, Day he kind of took over but the thing of it is up there's been numerous coaches on both sides. If you couldn't beat the other, Ohio State or Michigan, they got let go for it. And that's where Harbaugh, people weren't happy with him for a bit. All of a sudden he starts beating Ohio State. That leash gets a little longer, and then Harbaugh wins national championship and stuff. With Day losing as many times as he has to Michigan, that's not going to fly. And, I think it's a winnable game, but, it's going to take some effort on it. I wanted to look here. Let's see, team stats. That's what I wanted to look at with Ohio State, Michigan, because that was the game. Let's see. So Michigan threw for a whopping 62 yards. Did I read that right in the game?
Yeah, you would.
9 out of 16, 62 yards, but they ran for 172 in the game. And Michigan held Ohio State 77 yards rushing, 175 passing. So that gives me encouragement there as well. I mean, the one thing I looked at is Ohio State's rated one of, if not the top defenses in college football.
They do have a good defense. I will give them that.
So, I mean, I don't see this being a high-scoring game by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's going to be one of these you're going to have to grind it out. I mean, Ohio State and Tennessee, they have a lot of similarities as far as offense goes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, looking at this Michigan game again, you had Michigan's main running back, Mullings. I didn't watch the game. I don't keep up with Michigan on it, so I apologize if I mispronounced the name. He went for 119. They had just the other guys got some yardage. I mean, nothing real crazy in that regard. But have you, looking at it, what have you picked up on as an advantage for Tennessee?
Definitely their defensive line against their offensive line. Their starting center is I think he tore something. I'm pretty sure it was his Achilles, so he will not be playing in this game. If I'm not mistaken, he is the transfer. He transferred to Ohio State from Bama. He was Bama's center. Then Nick Saban retired, so he transferred to Ohio State. So I think that's who that guy is that got hurt. And he was a big guy on their offensive line. Like, he was probably their best offensive lineman that they had, and he was the leader of that group. So that was a huge loss for them. They also have lost their left tackle, and I think they've had to do a lot of shifting. That was a storyline going into the Michigan game, was their offensive line shifting or shuffling around guys to play in different spots. So, I think that's the same narrative going into this game is, how does Ohio State's shuffling offensive line match up with the Tennessee defensive line that's at this point has sustained zero injuries the entire year, and we're still rotating 3 guys deep across the entire line. Mm-hmm. And that's a defensive line that's dominated every single game outside of a trip to Athens.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking here. They got to do it, and the thing with me that I'll look at is, it does not appear to me that Will Howard is a running quarterback. That's a good thing for Tennessee.
I think
that's a good thing, because the thing with Carson Beck, he could break you down when Tennessee would get a little bit of pressure, or when they were running the same thing. When quarterbacks have given them trouble, they can run. The fact that Howard I mean, I think he can probably run a little, but
You can. Yeah.
but he's not just that's not his game is to get out and beat your run. I mean, the most he's run for this year in one game was he had 10 carries for 28 yards against Iowa. 72
He
carries,
is
131 is all he's gone for.
he is second on the team in rushing touchdowns, though. So that may just be all quarterback sneaks down at the 1 yard line, or that may be a different option that they roll in golden
Yeah.
goal situations of some RPOs and him keeping it and stuff. I think him and Drew Aller of Penn State, they honestly, to me, are kind of the same. Drew Aller is a lot more mobile than Will Howard is, but they don't really tuck it and run if they don't have to. So, and that, to me personally, they do kind of remind me of Carson Beck, except I would just put Carson Beck would run it more than either of those guys. So, but I think even all three of those are comparable, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, that seemed like a good thing to me, though, for Tennessee. So, the key is going to be do they sit back and let Howard have all day, or are they going to put the pressure on him? Seems to me, like you said, with the lineman down, you got to put the pressure on him and really bring it.
This can be a Jackson Arnold top game. You can force havoc on that offensive line, and you can make a guy that's not necessarily proven it at all this season, even though he does have the talent to. Will Howard does have the talent to beat anybody, in my opinion. He just hasn't proved it yet. So hopefully you don't have one of those situations like we had with Carson Beck of he hasn't done anything all season, and then he finally puts his one game together of the season against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean Beck's thrown for a lot of yards, but it's really been more of a weird season. It's been like I said, that was his big game. I mean, he wasn't playing too well against Texas either prior to his injury on Saturday. It'd be interesting to see if he plays in the bowl game. I'm telling you, I had somebody say, well, he'll be good in 3 weeks on it, but that did not look good to me.
Who, Carson Beck?
What's that?
Carson Beck?
Yeah.
I think he's done as far as I know.
I mean, it looked pretty bad.
I saw that the family is looking for doctors to kind of guide them along the situation because it is his UCL. So you may even see Tommy John for a quarterback.
Yeah. Yep, that's possible. That's normally what you hear.
Yeah.
That's
what I thought whenever it happened. I was like, he got hit right in the arm. I looked at who I was watching the game with, and I said, that's a pitcher injury right there. That's right on the elbow. Like, and considering he's a quarterback and throws it I was like, he's not coming back.
Nope. That'll hurt him. I mean, he could still get drafted and play next year, but let's see here. Yeah, we got some good Vols national champs. Vols in the playoffs. Vols #1, Lady Vols undefeated back in the top 25. Things are definitely good right now in Knoxville. John says Day's gone if we beat them. I mean, I agree on this one. If Day were to lose, you got to be careful, I think, when a guy's really winning a lot. And Ohio teams ought to know that well from the old Cleveland Indians when Mike Hargrove was winning the division every year, but he couldn't win the big one. They got rid of him. And, well, things went downhill from there for a long time. Obviously, the Guardians now are pretty good, but they still can't get over that hoop. This would be interesting if they just come up and left on his own. I mean, I don't know what jobs will be open. I think about what's going to be open is open at this point. I mean, Frost went back to Central Florida. I think I called that one, actually. I really did, because I wonder if Frost could be the guy to go back since he didn't have a job. I still wonder if Belichick to North Carolina happens. Seems pretty serious, but
he did say it's a if. I think and what he said in whatever podcast he was on, he wants to turn. If he goes to a college program, he wants to turn that program into an NFL program. He wants to turn them into a factory for NFL players. Essentially, I'm assuming run exactly the same kind of style as you see NFL teams do. And he wants to prepare them for the NFL. And not only just like to play for the NFL, he also wants to build players' careers after football, whether it's after they're done in college or after the NFL. So to me, I mean, if you can get him on board, that he can turn any program into at least a respectable program, in my opinion. And that's a North Carolina program that they need somebody right now.
Yeah. The interesting thing about it is you let Mac Brown, who was 73, go, and you're going to bring in Bill Belichick, who's, 72?
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, man. I don't know that it works out to me. I almost, maybe so. Great coaches are great coaches, but it seems a little old to me to be getting your first start in college. But we'll kind of see how that one goes. Nacho says 31-24 Tennessee. If it gets that high, I'll be shocked. I'll take it. I'll take 3-0 win. I'll take a 2-0 win. I don't care on that. Hey, what's up, Rhonda? Good seeing here. Yep, definitely a great time to be a Vol fan. We're going to talk about this one right here in just a second. And yes, I most certainly do remember this bowl game. And I did see that Austin Price, VolQuest.com, said he spoke to Bill Duff, who stopped Eddie George, at the goal line on like 4th and 1, Heisman Trophy winner Eddie George, and said Bill Duff will be in attendance in Columbus for that game. I thought that was pretty cool. I kind of wonder if they might have him come in and give a speech in the locker room there as well. Let me get caught up here just a minute. Yeah, we were talking North Carolina, David, for sure, about Belichick in North Carolina. But Tennessee, Ohio State, key to victory. What are the keys for Tennessee based on what you've seen? You said defensive line. You said defensive line getting pressure. Both defenses are pretty good. How do you think Tennessee's offense can do?
I mean, Tennessee's offense can – this is an Ohio State defense that is really good, but, I mean, nobody in the nation so far has stopped Dylan Sampson. So, I mean, it's a scary thing. And that's also an Ohio State defense that is played good. I mean, played okay against Oregon. But Tennessee and Oregon's very comparable. And I think Tennessee's offense is as comparable to Oregon, although I would give – I mean, Dylan Gabriel's a fantastic quarterback. So Tennessee has to – I guarantee it, that's probably the game that Josh Heupel's going to go back and watch the most whenever he compares Tennessee against that Ohio State defense. I feel like running the ball with Dylan Sampson will be very effective in this game, and I think it'll be the same kind of mindset that we used against Georgia of we're going to develop Dylan Sampson to run, and then we're going to beat you outside from there on out. So to me personally, I see success air offense against their defense. I don't know how it will necessarily happen outside of the running the ball aspect because, I mean, we already know that Dylan Sampson will have success in this game running the football. It's just who's going to step up after that. Or all the wide receivers going to be healthy. You're going to get Brew back. You want to get Thornton back. Is Squirrel going to be okay? And all those guys going to get open and actually catch the football?
You better hope they're healthy considering Nimrod just hit the portal.
Yeah,
Caleb Webb hit the portal too. So they're not going to be – I mean, not that they're big contributors, but they're still depth. I mean, we saw them against Vanderbilt. So, yeah, I think they'll be fine, especially given the time that they've had off to get healthy on it. I was curious to look at the Oregon stats. Gabriel went for 341, 2 TDs. Jordan James went for 118 rushing in the game, had a touchdown. They went for 158 rushing. So they definitely, based on what I'm seeing, have had the most success against Ohio State this year. So, yeah, like you said, I agree. If you're Josh Heupel on staff, you have to look at what Oregon did in that game. That's going to be the key for it. Now, I think the difference you have a veteran quarterback in Gabriel versus a redshirt freshman in Nico, but Nico's gotten better. I mean, ever since that horrific interception against Alabama, I think he's played lights out.
I think he has too.
I mean, I think he's been really good. He's made some big boy throws. He's been poised. I mean, his receivers have not always helped him out on it. I've had no problem with the way he's played. And, to me in this game as well, we hear about this Ohio State defense. This offensive line, most of this offensive line, if they lose, they're done. This is their career.
Yeah.
At Tennessee done with. So if there's ever a time for this Tennessee offensive line to come out, play the games of their lives, it's this. At Ohio State on the road, doing your thing. The fact that you've got a Remington Award finalist at center, I like that pretty well.
Yeah,
with it.
and
the
it's
thing
not
is,
just
do your guards step up? Do your tackles step up? That's going to be the big one for it. You look at defensive statistics on these teams; they're pretty close. They're pretty close across the board. It's going to be a big time, man. It's just two pretty good football. This is two good football teams, and frankly, both of them should not be 8-9. This bullshit that you win a conference and you get a bye, they got to fix that.
Yeah,
they got to fix it. What was your opinion on the rankings?
I was shocked whenever I saw the way they did it. I did like the way that they did it, the way that they went down the board. I was extremely shocked to see Penn State where they were. Like that was like whenever they showed Penn State at the let's see they are at the 4 seed, or as the 6 seed, I was like, my mouth was just wide open. I was like, really? You reward them for losing their conference game, and then a team that got dominated at home against Ohio State, in my opinion. I get they only lost by 7, but they got dominated in that game. They were at 6, and I was like, well, whenever they showed Penn State, I already knew Tennessee was at 9 and going to Ohio State. It was already finished at then. To me, the rankings were another year of poorly doing it, in my opinion. I don't think they've hit the hammer once. Disappointed. I mean, none of the teams that lost their conference championship game got punished in any sort of way, which was something that totally shocked me. And the only reason why it's just because the committee's trying to save their rear end. That's the only reason why they did it. They didn't want to face any more backlash compared to what they already have over the last 5 weeks or whatever it's been that they've been doing the rankings, because they've gotten blasted every single week now. And if they would have done what they were supposed to do and punish the losing teams in the conference games, they may be out the door already by today.
But we kind of called that.
Yeah.
That's what we've been saying. That, I mean, really, you can't. But I think in Penn State's case, though, with them having 2 losses, they should have dropped behind Ohio State because Ohio State beat them.
And that should have been an argument in between us and them.
Yeah.
Tennessee compared to Penn State. And at that point, everything I saw said that Tennessee should have hosted.
Yep.
So, I mean, outside of the Arkansas loss, everything looks pretty comparable.
Yeah, I mean, you had the, what was it called, the Sagarin rankings, and they favored Tennessee on it over Penn State. So, I mean, I don't like the fact that Boise State and Arizona State get buys. And I don't like it. They should not get automatic buys in it. And
like that.
Something's got to be. Clemson should not even have had a shot to get in. And unsurprisingly, they got in. You got to give them credit for doing it. I'm glad they've gone to 12 teams. I saw Danny White saying they should go to 16, maybe. But you're still going to have arguments, even at 16 teams, because if you add 4 more, in that case, you're adding Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Maybe that would have been pretty cut and dry on that one. But I still have a problem with the number 12 team in the rankings going to a first-round bye, and the number 9 or 10 team getting first-round bye on it. I don't know. I don't think it. I guess I'm more aggravated because it hurt Tennessee on it. But, you got to have the anytime, anywhere mentality. Tennessee did. The Arkansas loss, which shouldn't happen, is what come back on them. That's just the bottom line with it. But it did. Tennessee's got I seen one that was pretty funny. You've probably seen somebody say it too, but Tennessee's got a pretty hard road to winning the national championship. But Alabama's got a whole lot harder road to winning that national championship this year.
Yep.
Also known as they're going to the
ReliaQuest.
Yeah. I hate it so bad for them. Finally, the Alabama bias went away. There's one time I probably wouldn't have had a huge problem with them getting in, but I have I'm not the least bit heartbroken that them, Ole Miss, and South Carolina are all going to be watching the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because as a Bama fan, or not a Bama fan, a Bama hater, a Tennessee fan, never want to see Bama win. As a Tennessee fan, I don't want to see Lane Kiffin do good. And as someone who lives in South Carolina and put up with their mouths 2 years ago when I was at the game in Columbia, I don't want to see South Carolina make it anywhere either. So it didn't hurt any of my feelings that I have whatsoever on it. Ohio State, kind of get back on that a little bit. They talk about their receivers. Think Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson can get the job done against those Ohio State receivers?
I mean, I know McCoy can. Gibson definitely has the potential to. The way the secondary performed against a Georgia wide receiver group that didn't look that's just has a lot of talent, but their performance level the entire year has just been awful. So I can't confidently say that the secondary as a whole will step up and perform. It's the same situation we've talked about every week going back to Oklahoma and North Carolina State. If your defensive line and your linebackers get pressure on the quarterback, your secondary doesn't even have to really be good. They can just be decent, and they can look like superheroes out there. So it's going to be a tall task to compete with those wide receivers because they got some guys. They are the most talented team in America. So you take that however you want to.
The $20 million team.
Yep. To me, it's just the defensive line, the linebackers. They got to get home. They got to put pressure on Will Howard just to make our secondary, make life a little bit easier because it will be tough. No matter how big of a Tennessee fan you are, it's going to be tough matching up against those wide receivers.
I think the key thing you mentioned there's linebackers.
Yeah.
The linebackers is what concerns me. And then, of course, especially when you're playing the pass, Jalen Smith's been one of your main linebackers to play in pass coverage. Well, Jalen Smith's in the portal. So who's going to step up? Is it Edwin Spillman time? Can Edwin Spillman play against the pass?
I think the thing is about that is he came back from injury after being gone for, 3 months, and he automatically stole Jalen Smith's some of his reps. So that to me told me everything I needed to know after I saw. Smith knew that he's getting a lot of my reps going into this Ohio State game, even though the man literally had a club on his hand. So he was basically just had one hand out there. So he couldn't pick off a ball if you had to have him pick off a ball. So to me, that's why I understood the Jalen Smith thing, because guy comes back from injury after 3 months and he steals your playing time. He was going to steal a lot more of your playing time against Ohio State. And considering the recruiting class that we just brought in for linebackers and the linebackers we already have tucked behind in the roster, it was going to be hard to see Jalen Smith really pop off in the coming years.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one. That's, your Arion Carters, your T. Landers, your Caleb Perrys. That's going to be your main three in it. I'll be curious to see how much more Spillman plays in it as well. But I think it says a lot. Like I said, he comes back one game and Smith's in the portal. So riding on, they're going to be the key to me. I was looking here to try to see Ohio State's tight end. Doesn't appear they go to the tight end a lot. You've got their main three receivers. Is it Egbuka? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's Egbuka. Their tight end is the G. Scott Jr. guy. He only has 150 yards on the season.
Yeah,
2 touchdowns. So
that was, you had talked about Penn State, and I've heard some of these analysts talk about Penn State. Their main guy's the tight end for Penn State.
Yeah,
and a tight end matchup concerns me for Tennessee because they have such trouble covering the middle of the field.
Yeah,
with this one, you've got Ohio State's main pass catchers are wide receivers, all of them. So you can't give Will Howard all night to throw. or you give these receivers time, they're going to get open. But if you can put that pressure on him, you might be able to make him live. It's going to be a tough matchup for Tennessee secondary, especially if this line cannot get pressure.
Yep.
But if they're getting pressure on it, I think the secondary can do fine in this game. I'm not saying they can shut Ohio State down by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be a tall task for them.
Mhm.
But
you really, in all honesty, you need the same performance from the secondary that you got against Alabama. And I understand that's a totally different thing. You have a Jalen Milroe that was flustered all game. But in my opinion, Jalen Milroe's not going to pick you apart if he's just standing back there passing. If you do actually get a holding call every once in a while. So to me, if all you have to do is have the same performance from the secondary that you had against Alabama, and you're happy, and you don't really even have to worry as much about how the linebackers perform and the defensive line perform. Because in my opinion, the defensive line is going to perform in this game no matter what. That's the group you can count on. The Georgia game just happened to be the Georgia game.
Yeah.
Linebackers are a little bit more questionable, but I feel like they can definitely get the job done. And I think that Spillman coming in and replacing Jalen Smith, I mean, that's a huge difference in my opinion, because Spillman could hit just as hard as Jalen Smith, even though he's smaller than him, and he was definitely better in pass coverage just because he's a skinnier guy. So to me, I really like how the defense goes into this game.
I think we can do these two things here. Baxter says limit the big plays, rush for 175 plus.
Yeah.
We're playing Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
If those two things happen.
And if you look ahead, if you beat Ohio State, you're playing an Oregon team that can't stop a bloody nose. I mean, Penn State went everywhere across that field against that defense. And I understand, to me, if I looking at Oregon in the Penn State game, that reminded me exactly of 2022 Tennessee. You have a elite offense that can score at will, but that defense is putrid. And teams that don't necessarily have a good offense can still score points on you. Penn State's not an offensive scoring team, and they kind of just manage games and find ways to win. And they were putting up a shootout against the Oregon Ducks. So you give Dylan Sampson the chance in the Rose Bowl to go out there and give him 30 carries, 200 yards is very imaginable. 2 touchdowns is very imaginable. And I really like that. I like I personally like our matchup going into Oregon in the Rose Bowl compared to more than I do going up to Ohio State.
Yeah. Right here, it starts and ends for defensive line. Yep. And we run the ball on everyone we've played so far.
Yep.
No reason we can't do it there as well. Nacho says, don't get away from Sampson. Nope. You've ridden him so far. You got to ride him even more. And it's the biggest thing for Sampson. He's got to hold on to the football. And I think Darrell Sims, the running back coach, had said something about it here recently. He said Sampson, I think Sampson, his fumbles result from trying to do too much when he's almost stopped. He's trying to get more because he's pretty violent when it comes down. Sometimes take that one less yard if you've already got the first down and secure the football. This is big. Michigan did. Yep. They ran it on Ohio State pretty good. Absolutely. And I think that's a good thing for us because we're a lot better at quarterback than Michigan is right now. And the fact that, if we can get a run game going and we give Nico open it up a little bit, that's a good thing for us as well. I mean, I'm not taking any other center over Cooper Mays.
No.
I don't know if there's one better or not, but there's nobody I'd rather have. I can tell you that. I want 4 more games too. Let's play Oregon. Let's play
Texas.
You want Texas?
It'll either be Texas or Arizona State if you make it that far. So
and then might as well
Georgia.
Finally get our revenge on Georgia for the championship.
I don't see any shape, way, or form that Georgia doesn't make it, even though they don't have Carson Beck. Because good luck
Stockton
scoring.
Looked pretty good.
Yeah, good luck scoring against that Georgia defense when Kirby Smart has plenty of time to prepare for you. That's the thing that people just don't realize is, Georgia's having a down year this year. They've lost 2 games. That Georgia defense past few weeks, that's going back to the Tennessee game in the second half. That's totally different in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Texas didn't do anything, so.
Yeah, I mean, and Georgia lost at Bama and at Ole Miss too.
Yeah.
So it's not like they lost to Arkansas or Michigan. I mean, for example, I hate to throw shade at our own team, but shouldn't have happened. But
Nope.
I got to think we're pretty healed up going into this one with all this time off. Hadn't heard about the receivers, but the fact that Brew was just scratched right before the game, and I mean Thornton, like he was like they're cutting his pants off. He hobbles on, and then he goes 86 yards, and he's out for the game. I guess that was his last win he had. Let's see what else. Totally see a Super League coming at some point. I'm sticking with it. It's going to happen. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when. And I still think at some point it's going to be ESPN and Fox back in the Big Ten and the SEC, and that's when you're going to see things. The NCAA will be no more, and good riddance to them and their politics and their just biased that they have all the time, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, baseball, whatever on it. Let's see what we got here. We hit some more. Turntine, yeah, going against his old team. That's right. Old safety playing for him. Is Tennessee, is that the only Ohio State, or do we have a couple Ohio State guys?
That's the only guy that I know of.
I was thinking there was somebody else at one point, but I guess I'm wrong on that.
Felix Okpara on the basketball team. That's the only other person I can think of.
Oh, yeah, we got old Felix Okpara. That's right. Is this the Mike Matthews come out game?
He's getting a lot of reps this game. So.
Yeah. I mean, especially if some of these guys are hurt. This might be the Mike Matthews come out game.
I don't see why they would have hit the portal if those guys were hurt. Like, I don't see how you enter yourself in the portal knowing, okay, Bruce not going to play in this playoff game. Thornton's maybe. And then Squirrel, who's in a sling after Vanderbilt, maybe. I mean, if I'm especially Nimrod, like, considering he was so high on the pecking order, that's hard to see him jumping ship, considering he was going to get a chance to really prove himself and possibly earn a lot more respect going into next year. And the same could have been said about Caleb Webb. So those were two surprises. And that kind of, to me, that told me that the wide receivers are healthy and they'll be perfectly fine going into the Ohio State game.
Yeah, I think it's a case. I think it's the new age of college football. These guys are, especially with the portal window opening today. I wonder if it's the case if you're going to get in the boat, you got to get in somewhere if you're going. And I think with those two guys, the writing was on the wall. I think it was on the wall because next year you're going to have Brazel and Mike Matthews as your main guys. You've got three pretty good guys coming in. You got Staley, who I think they're going to be high on, ready to go next year after a year for him to kind of set redshirt. They may have to rely on him in this bowl game or this playoff game if it gets down to it. I mean, Squirrel White should be back next year. Do they go to the portal themselves?
Can't
we'll
hurt
see. To me, I think Nimrod had opportunities, and he didn't take advantage of them. I mean, he had a big drop. Was it in the Arkansas game that he had a big drop?
There's not one that stands out. I know he had the drop.
He had the one against Kentucky that would have been
I know the Kentucky one. I don't know about
I'm pretty sure there was one in Arkansas that was a pretty big drop.
There may have been.
He had. But, I mean, when you get your opportunities, you got to take advantage of it. If you got stone hands, I mean, it's not good. To me, if you can't catch football consistently, you're not an SEC football player. That's just, athletes are great, but if you can't catch, I mean, he needs to become a defensive back or something.
Yeah.
In that case. Rodney Garner's got to have him ready. Yep. Tennessee's biggest game since 2001 LSU. Probably. I mean, the Georgia game a couple years ago was very big. 2022 when we were number one in the poll. But, I mean, at this point, I mean, 2001 was to get to the national championship. For sure, you won that game. You were playing Miami. This here, I mean, you're playing. It's when you keep going. This is the playoffs. I mean, it probably is the biggest since 01. It really is. And what would be a suitable? I hate to ask the question, but I mean, it's on what's a suitable loss to you? I mean, there's going to be no what's the term I'm looking for? Moral victories in this. You either win or you don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, even if they lose, it'll be disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact they've made the playoffs, I still think it's a good year, no matter if they win another game or not.
Yeah. That's right on right there. I mean, you made the playoffs. You did what your goal was going into the season. I understand that you didn't finish that goal, but you still made the playoffs, and that's huge. I mean, this is Heupel's 4th year. We made the playoffs this year. You're in a great chance to build up a good team and make the playoffs again next year. And kind of the way it's played out this year, this is one of the few years where a team in Tennessee's position kind of gets put on the outside looking in of hosting a game. So
yeah.
I think if the same scenario kind of worked out next year and we were sitting at 10-2, Tennessee's probably hosting. So and that's just simply because every team that we played, every team that we beat, they haven't done anything. There's been no helping Tennessee. Even their loss to Arkansas. Arkansas has done nothing to help Tennessee since then. So that's just one of those years where everything kind of worked out against Tennessee of, okay, we're 10-2. You would think if you told a fan going into the season, Tennessee's 10-2, they're going to say they're hosting. So in my opinion, I think you take what you got here. It sucks that you're going on the road. Of course, as Tennessee fans, we think there was a huge argument to say that we should have hosted. I still believe that we should have hosted. I'm not going to get into that because that's in the past now. But, I mean, win, and this program is set. Lose, program made the college football playoff. You can get guys you need to. It's going to help recruiting. It's going to help the fan base. The only bad thing about it is if you go and you lose, if you bought a T-shirt, it kind of means nothing.
Yeah, it's man, how much sweeter would it be if we beat them in Columbus opposed to Knoxville? Though?
I mean, if you win, essentially you're going into the Rose Bowl with everybody around the program, the fans, the staff, in the future reference, the administrators, the donors, the media, even everybody is happy about what Tennessee has done this season. And you got everybody supporting Tennessee going into the Rose Bowl. And that's like something that we really haven't seen before since, other than the only outlier would have been after we beat Bama in 2022, if we got love from everyone then. If we go into the Rose Bowl after beating Ohio State at Ohio State, you're going to see the most love towards this football team that you've probably ever seen in your lifetime, if you're like me.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'll scrounge some money together, and I'll drive my ass across the country for that one. I will drive from South Carolina to California and not bat an eye about it. That's because tickets will probably be cheaper to go to the Rose Bowl than they would be to go to a game in Knoxville. Yep. So we'll see. One game at a time for sure. But yeah, it'll be big. That Rose Bowl will be orange for sure. Yeah. I mean, Oregon will travel too, and Oregon and Tennessee fans from when they played a few years back like each other. So it'll probably be a pretty cool atmosphere either way. But, it's easy to like an opposing team's fan base when you drill them both times, like Oregon did Tennessee those 2 times. But for me, I mean, like you said, the Arkansas did nothing to help. And Arkansas fans, you would have thought it was the 72 Dolphins we played, because I said they're not that good. And I had them tell me I was dumb and didn't know what I was talking about. You not watched. You don't know what you're talking about. We're a 10-2 team, and they beat nobody of significance the rest of the way. That was their game. That was their big game of the year. And You know, really in the grand scheme of things, it didn't hurt us. We still made the playoffs. It cost us hosting.
Mm-hmm.
It cost us playing an SEC championship game. But my thing of it is, you like Georgia, you go in, and I think there's a good chance your quarterback's done for the year. How will Stockton do? I don't know. He looked pretty good the other day. The team rallied around him. I mean, you know, Georgia's got 5-star after 5-star lined up, ready to go.
Yeah.
So, but you know, at the same time, what can we say? We're in, and you know, the biggest thing next year, I think the defense could possibly be even better next year. It's gonna be hard for the line to be better, but I think the line's gonna be really good.
Yeah,
I do think that linebacking core though
be a lot better.
All of them coming back because they're used to playing without Pilly. You're adding all that talent they're adding in. You're getting all your main defensive backs. I mean, your loss is Will Brooks, which will be a loss, no doubt about it. But I think defense can be better. Nico's going to be better. I think the receivers can overall as a unit be better. It'll be hard to replace Thornton and his big playability. It'll be, you know, Brew has been fine. You know, Kitzelman, it'll be hard to replace him. It's going to be hard to replace Cooper Mays. But this program is the fact that they're here in year 4 is a big deal to me. It's a big deal. And again, whether we win another game or not this year, and you said it earlier, this is one of the most talented rosters we're playing in the country. It's a $20 million roster, as they've said. So, but to me, there's no moral victories coming out of this, but I totally expect this team will compete.
Yeah.
They'll be in the game. My big fear is, or my big question is, can we avoid the nighttime road meltdown? That's it.
I hope not. I don't want to witness that in person. That would be tragedy.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, though, and maybe I'm forgetting something. Those nighttime meltdowns have only come against SEC teams on the road. Correct?
Yeah, but I can't really think of playing any other team like out of conference on the road. So,
yep. So there you go. We're good
well,
against out of conference teams on the road. Then
Pittsburgh started out nightmarish. That game was haunting from the beginning. I still don't know how we pulled that one out and won that game. Considering
Cedric Tillman.
I mean, yeah, but that game, the way that we started that game, that first quarter or however it was, that game was rough. And that was kind of like the Vandy game, except it was just one of those situations of Tennessee had never proven anything to that point in my lifetime, really. So I just expected, okay, well, here it is. We got this highly touted team going into the season, huge expectations, and we lose to Pittsburgh in week number 2. So it is what it is. Other than that, I can't think of Heupel choking on the road against an out-of-conference team because that's the only out-of-conference road game that I can think of.
Yeah. He choked at home to Pitt the first year, but that wasn't so much him as Joe Milton missed about 10.
That one.
But so there we go. There's a positive. Tennessee is not choked on the road against an out-of-conference opponent. So we're good on that one. We're good with that one. We're lay your money down now, guys. Take the money, take the points. Tennessee rolls on to Pasadena.
And to me, this isn't going to be the same crazy environment that you walked into in South Carolina and you walked into in a swamp. Don't get me wrong, Ohio State, they have a great stadium, fit over 100,000 people. But to me, I've never really seen them necessarily as a fan base or at watching their games where it's just this chaos of noise or this chaos of place. To me, it kind of it's always looked like there's a track around the stadium. So the fans have kind of been separated from the game itself. I understand that, okay, they do have the wall of like black whenever they do the blackout game, which does look pretty cool just considering the way the stadium actually is. So they do have a wall of people, which is intimidating. I do love the flag that they have on the whatever end zone that is, but I hate the space around the field personally. I think that's stupid. I think if you're a Tennessee fan and you're thinking about buying tickets, you better make sure your view is not obstructed because there is, from the looks of it, a lot of seats on the visitor sideline in the bottom lower bowl that have pillars in front of the seats. They're not little baby pillars either. They may take up 20, or not necessarily 20, like 10 to 15 yards of the field that kind of gets cut out of your vision. So if you're thinking about going to the game, make sure you check the view from your seats before you press the process payment button.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think you mentioned about the environment for it. I mean, to me, yeah, it's not going on the road. And I thought it was interesting on the playoff show, reveal show, Herbstreit, him being an Ohio State alum, he said, hey, if Tennessee gets some early stops, third down, Ohio State punts,
yeah,
they're going to be booing. He said it right then. They're going to start booing Ryan Day. If you can take that offense out early, you get that crowd to turn on them. I mean, there you go. Is it going to be like Rocky IV where the Russians turned on the Russian? I mean, is that what it's going to be? And I mean,
this is an Ohio State team that's coming off what some Ohio State's fans, like some of the younger ones, say that's the worst loss of their lifetime. I mean, that was a awful Michigan team. You can't really put anything else past that. They just don't have a quarterback they're running out there. And they come into your place and they dominate the line of scrimmage and they beat you. And then you have everything that happened after that with the planting the flag in midfield, the pepper spray, which was, I don't see how, I still don't know how there's not been total punishment for that. That's just, if I got pepper spray in my eyes, I'm going to be pissed. And there is going to be repercussions that happen. If after a football game, like a police officer on the field pepper sprays me, like something should have happened because of that. Someone with sensitive eyes, like I'd been so mad. I'd been furious. They would have been dragging me off the field in that situation. But that fan base is not happy whatsoever with them. Some of them didn't even wanted to decline the invitation to the college football playoff because of Ryan Day's performance against Michigan. So, because that game is a lifestyle for them, and some of them, that's their entire life is Ohio State and Michigan. So they lost the game to an awful, and I mean awful Michigan team. And here they are now where they get a host and the fan base isn't really truly happy with the team. So definitely two different mindsets for two different teams.
Yeah, I'm hoping that carries over into this game and
it may.
That fan base is still upset. And
it may.
Yeah, the biggest thing is Tennessee can't let them come out and just go up and down the field on them because you're going to re-energize that fan base. Yeah. They're going to start believing, and it is going to turn into a hostile environment. And so Tennessee's got to be able to take them out. And it seems like an Ohio State offense to me that is prime that Tennessee can take advantage of. Just because Howard, yeah, he can run, but he's not that mobile of a guy. Their line beat up. Those are two recipes that a top-notch defensive line like Tennessee should be able to take advantage of. And got to put it, just be honest about it. Got to hope Tim Banks doesn't come up with a clunker this game. Tim Banks is going to have to bring it every game moving forward right now. Every game. We can't have this coaching staff cannot coach not to lose.
Yeah.
They got to go in to win every game. None of this conservative crap. I get it. There's a time and a place for it. If you get where you're there. But they've got to be aggressive. I don't want to see any of this conservative crap where it's just like they're playing not so much not playing to win. They're just playing not to lose. Just doing the prevent defense crap like that. Yeah, there you go. Attach. There you go.
He's had weeks to prepare for it too. I mean, even after the Vanderbilt game, the projections were still Tennessee and Ohio State. So if they're just sitting around just practicing and the coaches like Tim Banks aren't preparing for potentially, if they weren't watching film for Ohio State and Penn State, then I have issues because what in the world have you been doing up
Yeah.
until yesterday? So to me, you had to sit there and you had to take advantage of the week. I would have just watched, if you want the best of both worlds, I just watched every single snap of Ohio State and Penn State 100 times. So that way, no matter who we would have ended up playing, you would have known your opponent. So there's no excuse for this defensive coaching staff, especially Tim Banks, to go out and lay an egg, considering he's had 20-some days to prepare for this.
If I'm them, I'm watching. If I'm the offensive staff, I'm watching Oregon.
Mhm.
I'm watching what Nebraska did. Nebraska put 17. I know that's not a ton, but that was Nebraska
should have
gave
won
Ohio
that game.
State a scare.
I watched that game. Nebraska should have won that game. They choked that one away.
Yeah, I'm watching.
Because I think they were up late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think they were, and I'm watching Michigan too. Even though Michigan was not like an offensive juggernaut that game, they still did some stuff that made it hard for them. And then I'm watching, I'm watching Nebraska offense and defense. I'm watching Michigan. What did Michigan do defensively? I am watching Penn State's defense. What do they do to limit them?
I'm watching the Indiana game. I'm watching what success Indiana didn't have against that Ohio State defense.
Yeah.
Because, Ohio State completely shut them down on both sides of the ball. So I'm looking and I'm doing the opposite of everything that Indiana did.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some good tape out there to watch for sure on it. I think we'll save. I don't really have a feel for it yet. We've still got a little bit of time. We won't say predictions for next week.
Yeah. Works with me.
All right. And of course we'll get more into it. There'll be more news. Will any more guys hit the portal this week? Speaking of portal now, Tennessee's had 5 hit the portal? 5 scholarship guys now have hit the portal.
Should be about 5.
Jordan Matthews, Jalen Smith, Caleb Webb, Chaz Nimrod, Bison Lang. I feel like maybe I'm forgetting somebody.
Khalifa Keith, so 6.
Khalifa Keith, so 6. There's 6 of them. Anybody surprised you? Anybody you're like, man, you hate to see any go, I think, but
not really.
It's
like
not
it
replaceable.
Surprised me. Oh, everybody's replaceable in today's era of college football. So
you have to be ready to replace literally anybody.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm kind of like you. I don't think there's any surprise me. We both said it on here one night because we were talking about center for next year, and somebody said Bison Lang. We both said that's going to be Satterwhite. Lang probably not even a factor. So he's gone. I kind of hate to see Jordan Matthews hit the portal. I always thought he had some pretty good potential, but who's he playing over next year?
Nobody.
Gibson, McCoy is going to be your guys again. Harrison, Boo, Jalen McMurray.
You get Jordan Thomas back.
Yeah, Jordan Thomas. I'll be curious to see if they keep him where he was going to play or do they move him back to safety, possibly, with Boo and Christian Harrison playing as good as they did at the star position. There's depth. Plus, you've brought in a lot of guys. I know I've heard people say we brought in a lot of 3-stars. Most of them guys, man, they're playing at like powerhouse programs, though.
Yeah. That
they recruited. So some of those guys will pan out to be pretty good football players for Tennessee. Every program's always going to sign 3-stars.
Mm-hmm.
Your big thing is scouting them and developing them. That to me is the big thing. I just don't, and I think we'll see more guys go. I don't think there's any doubt. I think you look at the roster, your guys who've been in the program 2 or 3 years and still aren't playing. I think you've got to look for them to go at any point. I wouldn't be surprised to see another running back go.
Yeah.
There's one I like pretty well that I'm not going to be surprised to see unless, maybe the injuries held Selden back, and next year he's ready to go. I mean, you're going to have right now. I think Sampson's gone. I can't see any way Sampson comes back.
I think personally, I think they bring in a running back from the transfer portal because that's not necessarily a room that you look at right now that you're totally confident in. I mean, Peyton Lewis is good. I'll give him his grace, but to me,
Bishop looks pretty good.
to me personally, Bishop so far, I mean, he's good, but I just don't see him being a starter at the SEC level. And Peyton Lewis at times there's been some issues that I've seen with Peyton Lewis. He got taken off a kickoff team a few times because of the decisions that he makes. To me, it's just like he just runs straight downhill and he just tries to run over somebody, and there's not much side-to-side movement. And he's gotten stopped. He got stopped against like Mississippi State on 4th down because of that. Like it's just kind of a straight line of mentality. So I want them to add another guy out of the portal for the running back position because Cam Selden can't stay healthy. Bishop, to me, he's great. He's a great backup running back. I can't see him starting. Peyton Lewis
has been hurt too.
Yeah, I like Peyton Lewis, but I can't say right now that he's your starting running back next year, and he's going to have a good SEC season. So, to me, you have to add somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I like the guys they added through the signing class, but I don't think they're.
No,
I don't know that they're your instant impact guys. I wouldn't have a problem with it if they go out and get a big running back at all. But I don't know. They've had pretty good success with guys, putting them in and out since they've got there. I mean, they've had kind of the same ones, but I think it's an interesting point you bring up. Do they look at hitting the portal for running back? I think it's something you got to consider because just how reliable are some of these guys with injury, and it still wouldn't surprise me see him lose more to the portal on it,
especially if they lose another guy.
I mean, your receivers, there's still a couple receivers I wouldn't be surprised to see hit the portal, but I don't think it's anybody that's played any kind of major role.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be ready for anybody to hit the portal, to be honest. I mean, it could be a main contributor that hits the portal. I mean, last year there was rumors of Dylan Sampson hitting the portal.
Yep.
I don't know how legit they were, but I have seen Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com. They don't speculate to the people as to who's going. Occasionally they might on the board, but he said, I guess over the last couple of years, they've had 7 to 8 articles written for guys who were hitting the portal, and they end up not hitting the portal. He didn't say who by any means, but just goes to show you, it's just you just never know. I mean, it's the offensive line. I mean, if I'm an offensive lineman, I don't really know why I hit it. Somebody asked, we've talked about this, so I meant to hit this earlier. David Fisher said, will Sanders be a starter next year? I think as soon as the nose of his car hits campus, he's a starter. I don't see any way he's not. I really don't. I think it's Hurd. I think it's Sanders, left and right tackle. I think Sham is playing one of the guard spots.
Yeah.
Satterwhite's center, and I think they go in interior line portal. Wouldn't surprise me. Could they possibly try to get a center? I don't know. I would almost say they go Satterwhite with it.
I think
they're going to be loaded at tight end.
They may add another tackle out of the portal because, to me, you got to be too deep at tackle. You have to have two guys on each side that can necessarily be a starter. You of course need the one guy that's like your go-to kind of what we kind of consider Lance Hurd, especially going into the season of, okay, this is your guy. And then the other guys you can just drop off tackle wise, but you got to have one guy that's an elite tackle that you can have on either side of the ball. And we've seen Heupel offenses thrive in that. I mean, look at what Darnell Wright did for Hendon Hooker. So you got to have tackle depth because that is a position that does get injured, considering it's on the offensive line. So, and if you look at the big teams, you look at the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas, they have 2 to 3 guys that they can throw in at tackle, and you probably won't see that much of loss in production.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, we talk about the tackles there. Right now, I think Sanders is a starter. I think Hurd's a starter.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at Larry Johnson. I mean, could a Larry Johnson hit the portal? I mean, he's a JUCO guy. I could go down through and speculate on guys that I think might hit the portal. Not going to do much good. But, you have some guys that they spoke pretty highly of. Jesse Perry, they had said some nice things about him. Bennett Warren was pretty highly recruited out of Texas. Does he develop and play a role? Trevor Duncan is a guy. Bustle. They have numerous redshirt guys. And the key is, does any of them step up? So, I mean, that's going to be the key. You're definitely, I think, going to hit interior. And, it's an interesting point, too. If you don't feel good about your tackle depth, I mean, look at the Oklahoma game. We needed both backup guys in that game. You got to have that depth. If you don't, you're in trouble. You're in big-time trouble on it. I still wouldn't be surprised to see him get a receiver out of the portal. That's kind of been a trend. They've taken one I think about every year Heupel's been there. And they have pretty good success with them all, too. Is a good thing about it. Yes, the incoming class can participate. I think this will be a little different, though, because with bowl practice, normally they always said that's when the young guys would get a lot of reps. And this ain't bowl practice. This is you're playing for a national championship. So, yes, they can participate. I mean, who knows? You might see it. You might see it in this playoff game. If John Campbell goes down, you might see number 70, David Sanders Jr., trot out there for his first action in the playoff game. But
imagine if they could do that.
That would be hilarious. I don't know. I actually think they can, but I'm not for sure on it. I'm not for sure, but he would probably lose a year eligibility on it, even though they've got the 4 game. I don't know how it works now. I've heard in the past that they could do it, but they'd lose eligibility for it. Now with this red shirt rule, I mean, they're not going to play a guy coming right out of high school on it. I think the chances of that happening are basically zero, but they can definitely participate. Do I like the transfer portal or do I miss the old days? As me doing a YouTube channel now, I love the transfer portal because that gets me views and it gets me subs. But what's your opinion on it overall?
I mean, I like it. I have nothing really against it. Football's a business, no matter which way you try to shape it. The NCAA pockets all the money that they do, and they've controlled the athletes, complete supervision going into the transfer portal and NIL era. So to me, I like the transfer portal. I think it's great for the players to be able to represent themselves, make a decision whenever you're 17 and 18, and used to, you would pretty much have to stick that out. The decision you made at 17 or 18 kind of developed who you were for life. And
where would Tennessee's football program be right now without it?
Middle of the pack SEC team.
Because with them, when Heupel took over, you had all the departures from the Jeremy Pruitt debacle.
Mm-hmm.
They were able, I mean, even though Pruitt's the one brought Hendon Hooker in, it wasn't Heupel. Pruitt may have done Heupel a favor on that one because Heupel was enamored with Joe Milton.
Yeah.
So Hendon Hooker, we've said that might have bought Heupel some extra time. And, of course, Heupel's doing fine now. He's got him in the playoff. But, man, they were able to get some guys in to make up for some of that depth that they had lost. Transfer portal come around at a perfect time for Tennessee.
Yeah.
So the fact that it helped us, people had already buried this program 4 years into the Heupel era during the first 12-team college football playoff, year 2 of the Heupel era. I mean, they were close to being in the 4-team playoff.
Mm-hmm.
There's parts I like. The biggest thing the biggest mistake with the portal to me from the get-go was it seemed that there wasn't really any guidelines on it. There was really no regulation. It was just kind of there. And, like Tennessee had to, last year they were going to come up and try to punish them something with Nico. I mean, how do you retroactively enforce rules that weren't even there?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were trying to do on it. And you look at it too, coaches can up and leave when they feel like it. Why you go restrict the players from it? I don't necessarily like it. I like aspect. I don't like the fact that supposedly guys are not supposed to be enticed or recruited from other schools. You don't think it's happening though? Come on.
Oh, it's definitely
happening. It's big time happening.
The Boise State coach just said it was happening the other day in his interview. He said, I got 7 or 8 guys right now that's being tampered with from other schools, and we're going into the college football playoff. So it's definitely happening.
Well, I mean, Tennessee's basketball team this past year, Jonas Adu left, good riddance.
Yeah.
Tobe Awaka, they said Jamal Meshack was tampered with. Teams are trying to get him to hit the portal.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got to imagine probably Ziegler too. The team's trying to get him to hit the portal. That's why you got to really appreciate guys like that maybe they could go make a little more money or something, but they don't. Who can blame a guy? If I'm in there and they offer me a few $1 million, hit the road,
gone.
It's life-changing money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially you're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed the NFL on it. So I don't know, man. It is what it is. I miss the old college football, but that old college football too, though, it's long gone at this point. Yep. And
if it was still old college football, Nick Saban's still the head coach, and Alabama's still winning national championships basically every other year. So
and we're still middle of the pack.
Yep, and Georgia's up there competing, and basically you're getting Georgia and Bama in the SEC championship game every year, and you may not even see Texas and Oklahoma join at this point. So it would be totally
Texas
different.
Struggled for a bit to get back going.
Yeah,
and Sarkisian come in, did pretty good. It's like anything, it evolves. It had to eventually. I think back to there's been numerous guys when they played college. I thought back to, they talked about Tim Tebow when he was at Florida. Mm-hmm. The amount of 15 jerseys that got sold, and he never saw a penny of it.
Yep.
That's not right. They had the one thing that changed it. It was the O'Bannon brothers used to play for UCLA back when there was, Coach K basketball. It was basically like the college version of NBA Live back then.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the game, but it was just their numbers. It was like the old NCAA footballs. You know who the players were. It was just their numbers. But, they're not getting a portion of it. At some point, like you said, the NCAA is making so much money. Yeah, these guys have to get it at some point. Yeah. It's only fair to them. Even the guy for East Carolina, they said was ranked like a 9 overall or something like that. How many people have played with him just to see if they could win with a quarterback ranked like number 9 it's overall or whatever? But let's see, had a couple good ones. Definitely think the portal's been good for the Vols. It escalated their rebuild big time. Why did Hooker succeed in 22? I think veteran guy. I think it was a lot of things. He had 2 stud wide receivers.
Yeah.
Cedric Tillman. Tillman was hurt, and then Jalen Hyatt stepped up with it. You had a stud right. You had a top 10 pick at right tackle and Darnell Wright. You had good running game. You had Alex Golish, who's now a head coach, who gets to spend his Christmas in Hawaii. That's a pretty nice gift for him. I don't know, because Hooker at Virginia Tech was not an elite quarterback, but sometimes things just gel. The right fit for it. And, this is a pretty good one too. He was a quick thinker. He was a
Very
quick
quick
thinker. He
thinker.
grasped the offense well. He knew it well. And I think this is a big one here. Hooker was like 24 years old. That maturity, being around it and stuff, it makes a difference on it. Nico's going to be, I expect Nico to take a big step next year.
Yeah.
I really do. Milton. I don't think it's so much Milton didn't pick up the offense. I just think
it was in here.
I think it was in there.
It was in there.
I really do. I agree. Yep. I think Hooker. I'm not saying Milton's dumb by any means or anything. I just think there's things. Hendon Hooker was a quick thinker. Hendon Hooker picked things up quicker. Milton, I just don't think picked them up as quick. And I don't mean that in a bad way by any means. It's just some quarterbacks go faster than others, and that was a big thing with Hendon Hooker with it. But we'll see. I hope Tennessee, again, talk about the portal now. I think guys have to get in now. If they're going to go, it's a guy like Nimrod, a guy like Webb. I don't think they could afford to wait, really.
Mm-mm.
They got to get in the boat because teams are filling out their rosters. Even these playoff teams are having to recruit the portal right now. They've got to spend part of the time getting ready for the playoff. They got to spend part of their day getting ready for the portal. It's kind of like Vitello had to do last year in the College World Series. They're trying to win a World Series, but yet you've got the portal open, and they're trying to recruit while they do that. I don't know. I don't like the fact that I think they've got to fix the portal window. Let the season end first.
Yeah.
Let the season end. Let guys play it out. Let these rosters not have a mass exodus right while they're trying to get ready for a playoff game.
Yeah.
Or something. Open the port. And like last year, it pissed me off that Tennessee is having to, for baseball, we're trying to win a national championship, yet you've got all these top players hitting the portal, and you can't host them or anything like these other teams because you're in Omaha for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being in Omaha for 2 weeks, but in terms of trying to get portal guys, you can't host them when you're gone for 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's NCAA. It's chaotic. It makes no sense.
I mean,
that's
thing with football, and the reason why it's open right now is just so that they can get registered for the spring semester classes. But if you honestly look at it, these guys aren't going to the school for the academics. They are perfectly okay with getting pushed back an extra semester academically if they have to. So just push it back. They're okay with the consequences. Those guys, they don't care about, most of those guys don't care one bit about their academics. They just get that C wrote down on the paper by the teacher. It gets turned in and it gets moved on. Some of them, they do really care and they're really fluent in classes and they actually show up and everything. And then there's some guys that, like, you'll never see them. You'll never hear from them. I had a class with Brew whenever his first semester here. He showed up to class one time the entire semester. And he still probably made a B in the class. So academics just doesn't, they're going to get their degree whether you like it or not. That's just how it goes. Like they're just not going to fail them essentially. So they're not changing schools academically. So it's perfectly okay to push back the transfer portal window, in my opinion.
Yeah. That you made the point that getting them registered is the key with it. But there's got to be some kind of a window to where teams shouldn't be having to try to win a national championship and also recruit the portal at the same time.
I mean, and these guys, there's also, just to get in to these universities, they have a different set of guidelines academically for these athletes. They don't have to meet the same standards that I had to meet to get into the school. It's okay, you just basically made a D in all your high school classes. Okay, I guess you're good enough to go to Tennessee. So it's just how it is. Like academics, no matter from high school on for a lot of these guys, it doesn't really matter for probably over 50% of them, I would say.
And it ain't that freaking hard to pass
Oh,
in
no,
high
it is.
school.
It is. It ain't even really hard to pass in college. If you're just not out there partying and drinking every night, you're going to pass. You're going to do just fine. All you have to do in college is just show up to the classes, and you'll probably get the degree.
Yeah, I mean, I always have a concern if a guy's questionable in his academics to get into college. That's a red flag to me. I don't care how good you are. I know there's one of the baseball players coming in, was one of their highest ranked maybe, and they said he was questionable in academics to get in. I said, that's a red flag to me. And that's the educator in me.
I mean,
what's that?
Some of them are just straight up dumb. I mean, and directly talking about baseball, whenever Zane didn't transfer here, the rumor about him was he's dumber than a box of bricks. And look how that situation turned out. So the writing is on the wall sometimes with some of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that Duke and Stanford and Vanderbilt and all these, like you said, these athletes are, maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe on some of those schools, it's a little different. But like you said, like you said, though, some of these guys getting in are not held to the same standard, say, that you were to get in.
Oh, no.
Or anything.
It's
just it's a double standard with it. So we'll see. It's the portal's interesting. It's here to stay. It's here to stay, and it's only going to get more chaotic for college coaches. And I think you got to give credit to these guys. And then we'll switch to a little bit of basketball here, and this is where I'm going to transition. You got to give Rick Barnes the credit. All these other veteran guys that's been around like him got out with it.
Yep.
A lot of people said this will be the end of Rick Barnes. Nope. Rick Barnes has killed the portal.
He has.
He's struggled a little bit out of the gate getting transfers, but now that he hit on the Dalton Connect transfer, it's on with it. Chaz Lanier's in. He went out and got 4 guys he needed with it to fill out this team. And the thing in Knoxville that you always hear with these portal guys, you heard it with Tony Vitello, you hear it with Josh Heupel. They're not just bringing anybody in.
Yeah.
They don't give a crap what the transfer portal rankings are. If a guy doesn't mesh, and all these programs have brought guys in that have not meshed and they didn't go after them anymore. They don't get everybody they want, but Tony Vitello's getting about who he wants for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, Barnes is getting pretty close with it. What Barnes has done with this program, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see where this is a big week for this team. Playing New York tomorrow night, playing at Illinois Saturday. I think this is the toughest week of the year, non-conference wise, for them. But man, this team's number one. I've said it from the get-go, and I had some tell me, I said, can Barnes and this team win a national championship this year? And I had some laughing. No, there ain't no way. They're a 4 or 5 seed at best. And maybe that's where they end up when it's all said and done. But nobody, when I say this about portal additions and stuff, I had a video of me having a cold beer, laughing, saying, don't doubt the portal king right here, Cool Hand Frank. I've analyzed these portal guys pretty heavily coming in this basketball roster. What Rick Barnes brought in, the biggest question mark right now is injuries. They can't afford any more injuries.
No.
With it. But other than that, I mean, you went the other night against Syracuse, right?
Yeah.
First game of the season you went to?
Yeah.
How good were they that night?
I mean, I left with like 8 minutes left to go in the second half, because it was over. And I mean, it was cold outside, so that was part of the reason why I left. But it was over. The game had been over for a while. You just kind of sit there or stand there, and you just kind of watch Tennessee dominate the game and pull away from teams. So, and that was kind of going into the game. I knew Tennessee was going to win that game. I knew Tennessee was going to win that game by 20 plus. So there was never an ounce of nerves that ever even thought about hitting my body. It was all just kind of sit there and enjoy the environment. Not much of an environment because the basketball team is what the basketball team is. When they're dominating teams, the environment's going to be a little bit boring. So it's fun. You just get to go watch some basketball, watch some guys play, and easily win a basketball game.
What's the ceiling for this basketball team?
National championship, considering, I mean, the AP poll that came out today, week 6 of the AP poll, top 12 teams, one of those teams wins the national championship game. It's how it's worked every year since 2004. So the top 12 teams in the AP poll today, one of those teams is pretty much guaranteed to win a national championship. The only thing that stinks is 5 of those teams, I'm pretty sure, are SEC teams. So
yeah, SEC's definitely SEC's caught up in basketball finally. It's taken them a while, but they've caught up. I mean, that's a case of they've gotten some good coaches. Numerous schools have hit on good coaches in the conference. But to me, I mean, the biggest thing, and it's the same with Barnes, they develop talent. They develop players. Look at how good Cade Phillips. I'm saying it now. Cade Phillips is an upgrade over Tobey Awaka.
Yeah, I would say he is. Yeah.
And I'd like to have Awaka back. Don't get me wrong, but he was really one-dimensional. He couldn't score outside of if Phillips. And I'm thinking they said Phillips can shoot outside a little bit. He's very athletic. I mean, he's got one speed wide open. I mean, that's how he goes the whole time. You've got one of the best point guards in America. You've got the best defensive player in America. I hate to compare Chaz Lanier with Dalton Knecht, but man, looking pretty close. There's some valid comparisons.
Yep.
There right now. Milicic is a stud. Okpara, I still don't think we've seen his best down low. We've seen some signs of it. Gainey's much better this year. I think it's night and day with him. The biggest thing with the Rick Barnes team to be able to win, the defense we've always known is going to be there. It ain't the defense that's cost them games. It's been the offense. Well, if that offense stays where it's at right now, that you're going to have a really hard time beating this team.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard because Ken Palm rankings, which is ones I like to look at, they have last I had looked, Tennessee was like top 5 in offense and defense. Let's see here. They've still got Auburn ranked number 1, but Tennessee in offensive efficiency rating 9th, number 2 in defense. And they got Duke number 1 in defense. If you got Tennessee a top 10 offense, all day long. Like the number 1 offensive rated team's Auburn, but Auburn's defense is 23. Tennessee's going to beat that. Tennessee's going to beat that. I mean, Gonzaga, number 2 in offense, 21 defense. And didn't Kentucky just beat Gonzaga?
Yep.
I mean, Ken Palm, like you said, talking about SEC, you got Auburn, Tennessee, you got Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, top 10 as far as Ken Palm goes. That's some pretty good teams there. And then you go on down the line a little bit. I mean, here's Illinois, who Tennessee plays this weekend. A&M 24th, Mississippi State, Mississippi. All these are top 30. What's your expectations for how they do this week?
2-0.
Think 2-0?
Tomorrow night will be a struggle just because it's Madison Square Garden and a Spalding basketball. So that's presented its numerous amount of challenges in the past. So we'll see how that factors into tomorrow night's game. But, I mean, this is a Miami team that's just been nowhere near as close to what we expected them to be or what people expected them to be because they've just been completely awful the past few weeks.
They're 3-6 right now. Ken Palm's got them 99th, 27th in offense, but 260th in defense. If Tennessee plays their game, they're going to run them out of Madison Square Garden. But Madison Square Garden's been a house of horrors recently for them. Illinois, that'll be a tough game on the road. Illinois, I mean, is 28th offensively, 17th defensively. I expect that'll be their toughest non-conference game. But, yeah, I'm like you. I expect them I mean, so far when they've gone on the road against these teams, they've pretty much drilled everybody.
They have
so far, no matter who it is, no matter where it is. So I expect them to go in conference play undefeated. The big thing with me, it seems like every time Tennessee gets a number one ranking, right after that, they seem to crap the bed. So, can they avoid the number one curse is really what it is. And, Madison Square Garden is normally a place that adds to that freaking curse where they go. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever forget the FAU game 2 years ago. And I paid for that one for no.
Why did you remind me?
I know.
I could have went tonight without thinking about that game.
I could have too, but I thought of it because I was coaching baseball at Dutch Fork, and some of the guys had like, hey, we're gonna bet you they were for FAU. It's like, if FAU beats Tennessee, you got to run polls. I was like, okay. I said, well, when Tennessee wins, you're going to run polls. Well, guess who got to run polls on that? I lived up to I kept my end of the bet, and I had to come in at the end of the practice and go get some polls. And it was like, there was a few Tennessee players got some cussings during them polls because I was not in shape for polls at that point. But, yeah, what a nightmare night. And that was, God, that path to the Final Four was
golden.
Was paved for them. And it is what it is. It'll be a fun week. So onward and upward with Tennessee athletics is rolling right now. Women with a big week, beating Florida State and Iowa this week. I mean, we are in the golden age of Tennessee athletics.
Yep.
Right now, you get an AD in that knows what he's doing. This is what happens down there. You get support, you get the right people, and really, the way they've evolved, the way they've handled the portal, the way they've handled NIL, they got it figured out. They're doing good things down there. Anything else before we get out of here tonight?
Lady Vols played amazing the other night in the second half
against Iowa.
Yep.
Yeah, they did. They were awesome. They got a good thing going on. I mean, I liked it against Florida State that night where they were up big. And Florida State punched them in the mouth in that third quarter, and they didn't lay down. I mean, they overcome the adversity. That was a good Iowa team. Like I said, that second half, in fact, they shut them down the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy style of ball they play, but
yeah,
Kim Caldwell emphasizes defense too. And, she's not afraid. What was it, Florida State game? She jerked Cooper out of the game twice, and she was pissed. But, Cooper was right back in doing her thing at the end too. And I'm curious to see what – I don't know that their ceiling's a national championship now.
Yeah.
But I think Caldwell can, if they continue to progress, and definitely the type talent she's bringing in, they're going to gain pretty quick with it. There's going to be some frustrating games this year because they're a little bit unorthodox shooting the ball, but there's going to be some fun games too when they get red hot against the team. But I think we'll wrap up. See, we're about 1:35. Man, we've had a heck of a crowd tonight. So thank you guys. We appreciate you tuning in. We're going to roll out of here. We'll get some predictions next Monday. I guess we'll have to get this guy ready. Super chats, always welcome. Get this guy a little money to take up to Columbus next week. We'll get Carrie's Columbus fun going next week on here for super chats. But he's Carrie. I'm Frank. This is the House Foreign Sports Channel. Appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, you share it out, you hit that sub button as well. We're going to roll out here. I'll see you tomorrow night after the Tennessee-Miami game. We'll talk some basketball again tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your evening. Last but most certainly not least, go Vols.